right, here we go, everybody. Yes, good afternoon. Let's roll. My goodness. Yes, Wednesday already. Let me check what this says. We're going to start in just a couple moments. Oh, wow. Huh. All right, Pete says we're good to go. Wow, I have not seen this. That's interesting. There he is crossing. Hmm. Wow, that's really interesting. All right, good afternoon, everybody. There's Janet. Folks, we're going to start. Just a moment. There's Garney. Share that you are watching. Pete says we are good to go. Yes, on this Wednesday. Good afternoon, one and all. Now, that's interesting. ABC News has obtained from the Rhode Island Attorney General's office, it's just footage they found on a dash cam video of one of the transport vans, I believe. It's just at Brown University, but it's definitely that it has not been made public prior to this. How much we know. So let me just check this. Okay, we're going to start in just one moment, but it's different. And this is video of him right after the shooting and then leaving the area. This Pat. Good afternoon, everybody. Folks, we're going to start in just a moment. I believe our audio is good all over, as a matter of fact. But that's different. Wow, there he is. Nope, that is a new video that we have not seen. There's that. And we should be good on all of our platforms. I believe we are. Yep. Let me just. There it is. We're still improving. We are still improving, but we're going to start in now, as a matter of fact. So, ICE agent Jonathan Ross had internal bleeding after the shooting that killed Renee Good. 2 U.S. officials briefed in his condition told CBS News. You know, the reason that's important is that flies in the face of that Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Fry, saying, you know, maybe the guy had a hip injury that you would get if you were closing the fridge. And that clearly is, you know, not the case. That now we're learning that he actually had internal bleeding. So I think that is all part of the spin, and we'll touch on that. But so this is different. ABC News, they have obtained, and they posted, and I just saw it, somehow from the Rhode Island Attorney General's office, new video from the Rhode Island Attorney General's office obtained by ABC News shows the moment the man who opened fire fled the campus after the shooting last month. Suspect has one hand in his pocket as he walks into a residential neighborhood. So we have seen that. New video shows a Brown University gunman just after the shooting. So I was over there on the side of the building, and this is from a shuttle vehicle dash cam. The video comes from Brown University shuttle vehicle dash cam, and it literally shows him crossing the street. It's pretty eerie then when we learn what was going on inside, what he had just done, and then everything that was going to ensue. But this is the first time that we have seen this. Now, we don't know when exactly the dash cam, the shuttle then goes off making runs and so forth. And then as the shuttle is coming down the street, I will share this on the page, by the way. You can then see already a Brown police or public safety have pulled up, but he is literally crosses right in front of the shuttle van. That is amazing. He has his right hand in the pocket, and there's of course the jacket, and there's someone walking down the street right across from him, obviously oblivious. The shuttle, by the way, goes right back towards Barris Holly. So that is the first time that I have seen this, so that anyone has seen it actually. And let me just see. It is interesting to me that somehow ABC News got a hold of it, and then Channel 5 in Boston, who's the Boston ABC affiliate, they just share that. They also got their hands on it. So I think that's interesting. I don't know about. So in other words, so no local. That's network. So ABC News, they're the ones that got their hands on it. That was not. This is also the first we've heard of this, that this video existed. Again, let me just find it. I saw the channel. Here it is. All right, I'm going to post it on at least the Facebook page. New video shows Brown University gunman just after the shooting. I'm going to, this is new. We've never seen this angle before. Could play it. Good afternoon. It was a student shuttle. Yes. I'll show you. So I'm going to hold up for those that are watching. And again, right now we're live on X. We're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're also live on the radio, AM 1380, 99.9 FM. You can always listen online at our website, depetro.com. I'm going to hold up. Wow, it doesn't come off that well. Yeah, that's decent. I'll hold it off, and I'm going to hold it up and play it actually. And you can, for those that are watching, you can see there he is. So that's the shuttle, and there he is right there. See how the shuttle's making their way? That's him right there, walking away from the shooting, and you're going to see the shuttle then come out, and they're making the run, and then they just happen to go in the other direction. So, it's interesting as see how now the shuttle goes, and watch what you're gonna see right there is already Brown police pulling up, and they have no dash cam video. I think that's interesting that the police at Brown did not have video, and then it just goes down. But apparently the student shuttle at Brown had dash cam. So I think that's video comes from a university shuttle vehicle dash cam. It's funny. We were just told, for those that remember, that there was no video. And that's true. There was no video inside. But it doesn't mean that there wasn't any video. And quite frankly, as we asked about dash cam video of Brown University police or public safety, whatever they're calling themselves, that there was no dash cam on that, I don't recall anyone. Now I wish I had said, do any of the question could have been, now I'm not saying they would have answered it, by the way, but the answer could have been, do any of the vehicles on the Brown University campus, do any of them have dash cam video? I know going forward they will. And, you look at the calendar, yesterday was a month. So the students are expected back next week. And I believe we'll have some kind of a briefing that I'll bring to you. I would think that we're going to have with Hugh Clemens. I'll be in touch with him later today. This portion of our program is sponsored by the Coesit Inn. Folks, stop it and see them. The Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue, West Warwick. Remember what we say, lunch, dinner, drinks in the lounge. They're waiting for you at the Coesit Inn. I wonder if students were on the shuttle maybe saw him. I haven't heard that. And it's very possible that many times people don't even realize. I'm not convinced that the shuttle driver knew at that moment that they had actually captured it. We don't know when they became in possession of that, but they are in possession of it. And you also see, boy, if somebody had chased after him, if somebody had run out after him, I understand why they didn't, based on what we've learned. But if someone had run out and flagged down, hey, that's the guy, sure seems they maybe could have caught him a little bit sooner. But now also, I want to give a special shout out. Well, we'll do it in just a moment. This portion of the program brought to you by Propane Plus. Folks, remember, a great source of energy, propane. Call them today, 401-885-4209. In Massachusetts, 508-252-3359. For Propane Plus, for all your heating and cooling, you can depend on Propane Plus, and they're available 24/7 at propaneplus.com. So there's several items that I want to talk about. And one of the first things is, and I believe I'm very comfortable with the coverage that I have provided for you regarding the status of the state and the fact that Rhode Island Governor Dan Mckee in the state of Rhode Island, that they follow sanctuary state policies. So there's a couple of facts that you can't get away from. One is that the Department of Justice lists Rhode Island as a sanctuary state. Now, I have posted this. You don't have to take my word for it. As a matter of fact, my word doesn't even come into play here. The Department of Justice, back in September, listed the following states as sanctuary states for illegals: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, District of Columbia, D.C., Illinois, Minnesota, Nevada, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington. Now, who's not on that list? Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire. They're not on that list. Now, I see when I posted this. Now, again, this isn't me. This is coming from the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice put out that list yesterday in Detroit. President Trump said starting February 1st, they're going to stop federal funding for sanctuary states. Now, Rhode Island is listed as a sanctuary state. Here's where I think some confusion comes in. I know, and I have complained about this, our local press, our local media, they continue, for whatever reason, to take the word of Governor Mckee. And I already know the routine. Governor Mckee, when asked, what does he say? Oh, we're not a sanctuary state. Our local media, they don't drill down on that. They take him at face value. And I don't know anyone at this point that would take anything that the governor says at face value. Let's be honest. The fact that he's even running for re-election is ludicrous. The fact that he's even running for re-election is ridiculous. But what our local press, our local media, where they leave him off the hook, and the real questions should be a series of, can you confirm the following? Because as much as Governor Mckee says, and he will repeat, and much like, Matos is the same way, they'll continue to repeat and say, oh, we're not a sanctuary state, but the facts are the facts. And the fact is, we offer driving privileges to people who are not citizens. They also, in Rhode Island, they make it very difficult, and they don't cooperate with ICE. And this whole business of they make them get a signed warrant. Other states don't do that. But the bottom line is Governor Mckee can say over and over and over that we're not a sanctuary state. But what matters is the Department of Justice says that we're a sanctuary state. And Governor and President Trump announced yesterday sanctuary states are going to stop receiving federal funding until they start to fall in line. And obviously, one of the first things that comes to mind, and it should, is what happens to the bridge? What happens to all that bridge money? Do you realize also it doesn't help us that we have no representation in Washington, which we don't? And the representatives that we have, whether it's Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, or whether it's Congressman Gabe Amo, or whether it's Congressman Seth Magaziner, all they seem to want to do is antagonize this administration. Rhode Island needs a Republican in Washington. Period. End of story. Right now, there's 4 representatives for the state, and Massachusetts should as well. There's 4 representatives in the state, and we don't have any representation in Washington. And we're on the outside looking in. I've also talked about Governor Mckee blew off the inauguration. I believe a lot of our local media, they don't make a big deal about many of the sanctuary policies, essentially because they agree with them and they go along with them. And they are jaded in that manner. Because if they weren't, they would not take what Governor Mckee says at face value. Listen, if you are offering driving privileges to people who are not citizens, you're a sanctuary state, period, end of story. There's no further discussion. Now, Rhode Island Governor Dan Mckee and that state of the state, and I'm going to touch on it, but I want to remind you about Capitol Fence. You know, fences can offer you security, fences can offer you privacy, good for if you have a pet. Yeah, maybe you get along with your neighbor, next door neighbor, but you just don't want them seeing you when you're out in the yard or playing in the yard or relaxing. Capitol Fence, residential or commercial. Call owner Mike Rizzo today. Free estimate 401-618-4407 or online at capitalfenceri.com. They'll do the fence and gate. Most trusted for privacy and security. Capitol Fence. capitalfenceri.com. They can also do repair and maintenance. Highest quality, it'll last for years. They're licensed and insured. Installation, durable, automated gates, whatever the gate may be, residential or commercial. Maybe it's vinyl, maybe it's picket, maybe it's chain link, maybe you have a pool. Capitol Fence, that would be a capital idea. Call them today, 401-618-4407. I also want to remind you about Watson Materials, especially, hopefully, all of the cold weather is in the rear view. Mike Rizzo is the best. Tell him I said that. He's great. Watson Materials, call Sean for a free quote, 401-885-0600. Watson Materials, largest selection of landscape materials in Rhode Island, 401-885-0600. Whether it's landscape lighting, pavers, retaining walls, natural stone, cobblestone, Watson Materials, the most complete selection of landscape materials in Rhode Island. Let's talk about the fact that Governor Mckee did deliver. He was able to deliver his state of the state. And it was a complete blip. And as other people have talked about and written, it's as if it was completely geared towards a Democrat primary. Governor Mckee, he is, I don't know what to make of it. I mean, there's no point in, you know, I'm not trying to embarrass the guy. I'm not trying to pound the guy. I'm not trying to pile on here. But the fact, you know, I was speaking with someone and it was an out-of-state reporter. And I said, when asked about Governor Mckee, I said, I think he's reckless. And what I mean by that is, as much as he says keep people safe, he actually doesn't keep people safe. And to run the risk of losing federal funding for the bridge and always poking the eye of the administration, I for the life of me, anyone in the world that is familiar with how, on the president's order, our troops went in and took out Maduro in Venezuela, I am at a loss if there's someone that thinks that they're playing around. What 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 part? What does he have to do to show our local leaders that this isn't a game? They're not playing around. You're not going to get the federal funding. Rhode Island can't survive without all that federal funding. And Governor Mckee has decided to roll the dice regarding keeping the state as a sanctuary state. Now, people can get upset about it. And boy, believe me, I get so much anger off of people. Oh my God, the filthy messages. And I get it. I'm on the front line and I speak out. And that's just no way to run a state. And one of the problems is in Rhode Island, there's so many of them, and probably close to 100,000, if not more. Rhode Island's population, the amount of illegals in Rhode Island is probably equal to, if not more than 10 to 12% of the population. And in certain cities and towns, it's obviously much higher, right? In Providence, it's probably 30 to 40%. When Providence has a population close to 180,000, and it's very fair to say that Providence definitely has 40 to 50,000 illegals. Obviously Central Falls, obviously Pawtucket. And then you get places like Fringe of Cranston, Woonsocket, West Warwick, Newport. I mean, they're there. And I also understand that, you get a lot of pushback of, for instance, Rhode Island has a large Dominican population, and they're not here legally, and they're not supposed to be here. And a lot of the people that are either Dominican, or they married a Dominican, or they're related to a Dominican, or they're friends with the Dominicans, they start to, clap out and mind your business, and what do you care, and you're a racist, and blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't work that way. People are going to have to decide, and no one can ever answer this question, for me. You work hard. Let's just say you live in Lincoln, or you live in North Smithfield, or you live in Cumberland, or pick a city and town, or in Massachusetts, but let's just stay with Rhode Island for a moment. No one can answer for me, where is it written that you have to help educate a family of 6 from Guatemala? Why is that? What, would you lose a bet? Like, why do you have to do that? Why do you have to pay for them to go to school for free, medical for free? Why? The answer is you shouldn't have to. But that goes on all the time, and it's never addressed. So when President Trump says we're going to start to cut the funding, understand Governor Mckee blew off the inauguration. Governor Mckee last night, we're going to fight this administration. We're going to blah, blah, the whole thing. Or the whole crowd up at that state house. It is absolutely broken. These people don't have a clue. And the fact of the matter is they use poverty and they use all those illegals to keep themselves in power. Tucker Carlson took a lot of heat when he talked about the replacement theory, but I watched it in real time. You go back 20 years ago, Cicilline was the mayor of Providence, and you would have a lower class, poor, but Caucasian family, and you would have a family of 4, and the mother and father would say to Cicilline, we were born in Providence, we live in Providence, we don't agree with what's going on in Providence. And Cicilline would say, you can leave, you can move, because I have, 12 Dominicans or Guatemalans right over here that's going to take your place, and they're not going to question anything that I do. So it's not all wrong. It's not. And they keep coming. But I'm telling you, it's coming to a head. And that's, there are, if you're like, how much longer do we have to listen to people who are elected officials? And they're supposed to represent everybody. Whether you're a mayor or a governor or whatever, you're supposed to represent everyone. You're not supposed to pick and choose who you represent. And if you bring up immigration, well, you're a hate monger, you're a MAGA, you're a Trump supporter, blah, blah, blah. How much more of the name calling do we have to put up with? Maybe the people that don't get representation in the state or in a city or town shouldn't have to pay all the taxes. Like they're so tone deaf. You're supposed to, their obligation, they swear an oath to represent all of their constituents. And I hear it consistently, weekly, of people that contact their state rep, their state senator, or whoever, and they don't respond to them because that person knows they had a Trump sign on their lawn. It's a form of discrimination. They discriminate politically, and it's wrong. It's totally wrong. You don't hear anyone call them out on that. Folks, this portion of our program, now remember, if you ever have a disaster, what do I mean by that? What classifies as a disaster? A fire is a disaster. If you have a fire in your business or home, whatever you were going to do is put on hold. And if you have a fire, you're going to have fire damage, you're going to have smoke damage, and then they have to put out the fire, and then you're going to have water damage. And then water can bring mold. ServPro of Providence. Call them today. 401-941-5500. 401-941-5500. Water damage, fire, flood, mold. ServPro Providence, whether it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the morning, 7 days a week. That's who I would call. ServPro of Providence, 401-941-5500. If you have been watching the footage out in Minneapolis, I mean, have you ever seen anything more pathetic than this crew? It's shameful that it's part of the United States. I don't relate to any of those individuals. I don't. What we saw over the weekend, these people, to me, they're like a parody. And people just keep falling for it. The people that are out on the streets of Minneapolis that are yelling and swearing at these ICE officers, they are just such a disgrace. And I wish more patriots, I wish more Americans would start to go out to some of these places in Minneapolis and Minnesota and start to show their support for these ICE agents, because they're under attack. And they keep coming up with ways. Yesterday, it's always a gimmick. Yesterday was the woman, I'm going to a doctor's appointment. If you're going to a doctor's appointment, you don't stop in the middle of the street and then block everyone. You keep going. I'm sorry, ma'am, where are you going? I have a doctor's appointment down there. Okay, continue on. No, I have a doctor's appointment. Yeah, we know that. I'm going to just sit here and I'm panicked and I don't know what to do because I have a doctor's appointment. And the next thing you know, they're taking her out of the vehicle and so forth, because she didn't have a doctor's appointment. She was there to block. They're the other side. They're such liars. They're just the worst. All they do, they are such pathological liars. And then look at that. Now they're grabbing this woman. And you see some of the, Mckee lackeys and some of the people on the other side. This isn't America. How about these people? Like the lackey, the mayor of East Providence, who, by the way, I've heard there's going to be an investigation, because part of being the mayor of East Providence is he's supposed to keep up on the maintenance of the bridge. You don't hear anybody questioning De Silva. What was he doing during all of this? You're the mayor of East Providence. That bridge impacts your city. What were you doing? I've heard from numerous government officials. He's supposed to be on top of things. He's supposed to be briefed by the DOT. He was signing off on all this stuff. Where's he in all this? And all these people do is say, this isn't the United States of America. Why are these people attacking ICE agents who are trying to remove criminals? How can I explain? The criminals they're going after the people that ICE are going after, these people don't have a leg to stand on. It's not as if it's bad enough they're not supposed to be here. At the very least, they're trespassing. They came in, snuck in, or overstayed a visa. But that's not enough. ICE is trying to remove people that once they were here committed crimes, and then they can't locate them, and they don't show up for court, and they have outstanding warrants, and they're wanted for child molestation and murder and assault and robbery and theft and fraud and everything else. And they're not even a citizen. They're not even supposed to be here. And then suddenly, and many of them have, records that the jacket's an inch thick. And then they locate that guy that we've been looking for. He lives right there. And they go to get him, and he's going to be processed. Number one, probably going to have to do time for what he's done. And then number two, deported. And then you have these demented individuals that say, I'm going to interfere with it. I don't understand political leaders that say, this is supposed to be the United States of America. The United States of America? Why in the United States of America are you defending people that not only are they not supposed to be here, but they've committed crimes while they were here? And of course, none of them can answer it. I want to touch on that woman because so much has been said. And apparently members of her family are Trump supporters. And members of her family have said she lost her way. And we're talking about Renee Good. And a girl spoke out yesterday, and I thought this was really interesting. But I want to remind you folks, if you need a plumber, J&B Plumbing, call them today. Providing plumbing services, skilled professionals, repair damaged water pipes. They can repair clogged pipelines. They can replace water heaters. Do you need a plumber? I got the guy. 401-743-9153. This Renee Good and all of these individuals, it is horrible what happened. Of course it is. And people get stuck on certain things. He shot her in the face. Why did he shoot her 3 times? Once the trigger is pulled, does it really matter whether it was 3 times or 5 times? It doesn't really seem to matter. But these people marching around with her photo and they identify with her. If you really step back, of course it's terrible what happened. But the individuals that led these women to think that they were doing something noble, that they even were doing something legal. I don't hear enough from whether it's Gabe Amo or Seth Magaziner or anyone like that. I don't hear anybody talk about that whoever was encouraging them to break the law in that way and train them in that way. And it was by design. How do you appeal to, think of the popularity of drive-thrus and the simplicity of a drive-thru, whether it's at Dunkin' Donuts, whether it's at the bank, whether it's, in Pawtucket, to get weed, whatever it may be. The simplicity of you don't even have to get out of your car. And the fact that they were even training them and showing them that, the beautiful thing about this is you don't even have to get out of your vehicle. You can be of assistance. You can peacefully protest by using your vehicle. Whoever encouraged that, whoever trained that, I'll give these individuals, the 2 wives, I'll give them benefit of the doubt that they were misled, that this is just insanity. And then you know, learn more about it. Um, and it is sad when you have anyone, let alone a mother, and she's there and they convince them and they go through training of, you know, what you do is you pull your car excuse me, right up against the door and they can't get out. And there's video of agents that are, they're trapped in their vehicle. They pull their vehicle right up against their door. But I believe, you know, what I didn't hear from so many of, you know, there were protesters in Edgewood, which is sad. There were protesters at the State House the other night, is what I didn't hear asked by any of the local coverage. Instead of just asking, you know, what brought you out here today? Well, it's enough. And I'm out here for Renee Good and blah, blah, blah. But I think the better question would be, would you have done what she did? Because I think I find the more you look at this and the more people have learned about it, right? We were blindsided. People were blindsided. Jumped into the media jumped into action where they immediately, you know, she was down the street and dropping off her child and blah, blah. Like the initial story was a young mother dropped off her child at school. As she was coming back on her street, there was police activity. She didn't know what was going on. She went to move her car, and the next thing you know, and obviously, you know, we've learned that's clearly not what happened. Clearly not what happened. So, this whole notion that, you know, now we learn that they had been doing this, they were training for it, as sad as that is. She didn't belong there. And then you had the wife doing that. But I think the more that people have learned about it, it's to me an unrelatable incident, because as most, I'm going to step back for a moment, but most women that I've seen, a lot of women online post things saying I'm about her age and I have a child and with children, I drop them off. And would I really be in the middle of a police action where, you know, someone that I'm with is out and yelling at them and they're honking their horn and trying to disrupt them, and that goes to another level. I think a lot of people are privately feeling that way, maybe not publicly, but you wouldn't know it locally. You wouldn't know it locally. It is true, Minneapolis right now is just inundated. It is ground zero. And admittedly, folks, like everyone else, I mean, you want to see the situation calm down. I think it's bad for the people out there. It's certainly bad for the agents. I can't stand the Democrat Party people in our state. They're so rude to this president. They're rude to law enforcement. They're rude to all divisions of law enforcement. When you see other Americans, and if you're online and you see them in Minneapolis and the way they're screaming at these federal agents and the filthy language, you know, the summer of 2020, obviously I did a lot of coverage of the protests, and the things that just stunned me and I found it so disturbing was the notion of part of the First Amendment is you have the right to go up and scream whatever you want at law enforcement. And I get that in theory, but then you have to be practical about it. And as others have said, there's a difference between you have the right to do something and is it really the right thing to do. And I get that, you know, in the Constitution, they have the right to go up and yell whatever. I get that, but I don't think it was designed for that. And I wouldn't compare yourself to what's going on with the protesters in Iran. And these individuals to be going to these areas in Minneapolis, and there's the profanity that they are screaming at them, and the things, and they're another one. They have no reason really to be there. It's not like they live on the street, even though, they've co-opted the word neighbor. He's my neighbor. I went to check on my neighbor. They love using that word. The mayor of Minneapolis was on Fox and Friends this morning saying, well, ICE is and I've heard some of the locals in Rhode Island and Mass say that ICE is terrorizing our neighbors. Boy, they love to say that. The first time I heard that phrase, it's obviously a talking point of progressives, was this past July when Providence police responded. There was an accident. ICE agents were going after an MS-13 gang member. And then that David Morales, who's running for mayor of Providence, said, they kidnapped our neighbor, Ivan. Think of how that sounds to someone. Your neighbor was kidnapped? Yes. By who? By these guys that had masks on. Who are they? We don't know. Where did they take him? We don't know. Yeah, he was kidnapped. Well, did he do anything? No, he didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, he was just at home, and these guys showed up with masks, and they kidnapped him, and they're terrorizing. And I mean, they do make it sound terrifying, but that's clearly not what's been going on, right? There's that story, and then there's the truth. But someone like a David Morales, he framed it as our neighbor Ivan was kidnapped. They came in with masks, and we don't know who they are, and they took him away, and no one knows where he is, and it's like he's vanished, and it's all lies. He knew they were federal agents. He knew they had badges. He knew that it was judge ordered, sanctioned, that they could go and get this guy. They also knew he was an MS-13 gang member who had been arrested for selling fentanyl. So my point is, it's hard to me. It's hard to get past the nonstop lies. And it is just, they leave out so much. And I'm glad, I thought Mike Chippendale did a good job, rebuttal, State of the State. I don't know how many people saw it. I like that a number of Republicans have spoken out, and there should be more people speaking out. And I get the venom. You can't imagine the venom that I get. But I'm not wrong on this issue, right? There's plenty of people that don't take a position because they want to do the finger in the wind. What does everybody else think? Oh, everyone's against that, then we better not say anything. I am consistent on this issue. I want to be very clear. My motivation and thought process on this, it's actually nonpartisan. If you made Harris the president, or if this was over a year ago and Biden was still the president, if you still put federal agents on a street and they're trying to conduct an operation and people are coming and harassing them and honking the horns and yelling things at them and throwing things at them, and then someone runs their car at them, if that happened, I would still say, it, as tragic as it is, that woman should not have run her car at that individual. And I would say that regardless of who it has. I mean, the way I view that, I can't speak for everyone, but to me, it has nothing to do with President Trump. It has everything to do with these individuals injecting themselves into life and death situations that are unnecessary, but they're misled. And the narrative from the other side, it is irresponsible for a lot of these Democrat elected officials for them to be spreading this, they're Nazis, they're Gestapo, they're kidnapping people and they're secret forces and who knows where they're going. They make them seem like it's human trafficking. And the elected officials that say that, they know they absolutely know that these are individuals that are sworn federal agents, that our country and government knows who they are. They are authorized to do that. So why do you tell people, like Congressman Gabe Amo, calling it cold-blooded murder? Why are you saying that when you know that that is not the case? But maybe we shouldn't be surprised, because I remember when Cornell Young Jr. I remember that. I was on the radio at that time. He was killed outside of Fighters, right at the corner of Atwell's and Valley, late at night, and he didn't put out his badge, and they didn't recognize him, and he was shot and killed by fellow officers. I remember the press conference when, at the time, Congressman Patrick Kennedy said that he was murdered by fellow police. The reason I say that is they know how inflammatory that is. They know that's throwing gas on a fire. It's done deliberately. It's done deliberately. You don't say that unless you are intending to get a reaction out of people. And people know there's a difference between someone dies, someone is shot and killed, and then someone who's murdered. I mean, there is a difference between it. And if you don't understand it, then you should take it upon yourself to look it up. But I believe it's decision time. I believe it is time. And this governor, it's hard to fathom even what's going on right now. He has no support. I'll say this about Governor Mckee. I believe he is doing the best he possibly can. But the problem is, it's not good enough. And people want more, deserve more, expect more. Mike Tomlin stepped down after, I think, was it 19 or 17 seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin seems to be a good professional coach and was a good professional coach for a long time. But it became, 10-7, 9-8, make the playoffs, first round loss. He stepped away, but is Mike Tomlin was he a good NFL coach? Yeah, if you look at his record, I think he won more than he lost. Did the Steelers have winning seasons? Yes. Would the Steelers make the playoffs? Yes. But to me, clearly, the Rooney family and others feel, okay, like, we want a little bit more. We want someone that can take us to the AFC Championship game. We want someone that's going to deliver a Super Bowl. If you want someone that's going to give you a winning season and get you to the playoffs, he's your guy. But not much beyond that. As a matter of fact, not beyond that at all. So as far as Rhode Island Governor Dan Mckee, and I don't wish him ill will. I think in his mind, his capability, he's doing the best possible job that he could do. But the problem is that really the best that the voters could do? And it's not just me. I'll take myself out of it. I mean, seemingly no one thinks that, right? That's why he has the low approval ratings. And when something comes up out of the ordinary, they can't hide how ill-equipped they are to handle it. And I know, I'm friendly with someone that's friendly with the governor, and the whole thing with the bridge, and it's not his fault, and he inherited that, and all of that may be true, but he's the governor. And that bridge and the fiasco and the colossalness of it, and it's only going to be closed for 3 months, and then they screwed up the bidding process. And Our traffic is still screwed up, and it's going to be screwed up. I said at the time it would be a tall order, if not impossible, to reelect him based on that. And I just, someone in his position didn't even realize that we're coming up on the anniversary of the inauguration. President Trump inaugurated, and someone in a different mindset, someone made up differently, would have gone to that inauguration. So Governor Mckee, just all joking aside, he's just not the guy. He's just, much like Mac Jones. It just was, whatever reason, he did better in San Francisco, but Mac Jones just wasn't the quarterback for the Patriots. Probably Bailey Zappi is a better example. Bailey Zappi was a good college player. Bailey Zappi showed some promise in the pros. But is there anyone right now that would switch Drake May for Bailey? I mean, the answer is no, right? When you get a Drake May, you don't want to go back to a Bailey Zappi. So the fact that Governor Mckee is still running for re-election, it really is the Peter principle, and somehow but I go back to, it shouldn't be ignored why he would think that he could get reelected. It has nothing to do with the polls. It has nothing to do with any of his programs. It really comes down to the campaign ballots. Folks, I want to remind you now, there's so many people that are sick. There are. Visit Marie at It's My Health, 1099 Mendon Road in Cumberland. Stop in and see the Queen. If you are sick, or your family member is sick, or someone you work with is sick, or a friend, stop in and see Marie at It's My Health, 1099 Mendon Road in Cumberland, diagonally across from Davenport Restaurant. And she will provide you, she's a great retailer, and the people of Cumberland are so lucky to have her there. She will provide you with some things that at the very least will put the person sick on the right path and hopefully make them feel better. It's My Health, 1099 Mendon Road in Cumberland. Folks, also this portion of the program brought to you by the Lodge Pub and Eatery, 40 Breakneck Hill Road in Lincoln. Remember, I mean, you want to talk about just a great restaurant. And we are so fortunate to have both the Lodge and K's, which is just a phenomenal Woonsocket institution. And I also want to give a shout out to David at K's. David is David, the owner of the Lodge and K's, is just he is just one of the greatest people that you could ever meet. And the guy is just solid all the way around. And Rhode Island is better for having someone like David. Both Lincoln, Woonsocket, everyone is better having him. And I'm thinking of him on this day. And pop in and see my friends at both the Lodge and K's. And a great meal is waiting for you. Now, I also want to, I'll get to that in just a moment. But I think it is decision time. I don't know anyone that is happy with the direction the state is taking right now. Folks like many of you. I mean, I don't like being in a state that, in an area of the country where it's basically like a punchline, where we cringe when we see anyone connected with the state in the national spotlight, whether it's Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, or whether it is Congressman Gabe Amo or Magaziner. You really saw it, to me, with the Brown shooting, where Governor Mckee I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it was exhausted. I don't know whether Governor Mckee knew that they were going to pull the funding on the wind farms. It doesn't help the state. He's like a shell. I remember when he first took over Gina Raimondo, I thought, good for him. He's a different set of eyes and finally getting his chance, and different than her. But now he has been, to me at this point, just swallowed up by the job. But he's still running for election, and you don't hear anything This business about wind farms and organized labor and the state, it's the ultimate. The state has champagne taste with beer money in their pocket. I mean, this is ludicrous. And now, like, that's the hill that they're willing to die on. They're going to lose federal funding because they want to protect illegals that are not even supposed to be here. I don't even know where to start in something like that. It's so ridiculous. Folks, this portion of the program, I want to remind people that we'll talk to her this week, but Stephanie Murphy at Marin, Barrett, and Murphy, criminal defense lawyers, your fight becomes their fight. Remember, call them. You never know. It could be you. It could be a family member. It could be a friend. If there are certain situations, very helpful to have an attorney. You need a fighter. Stephanie Murphy, Marin Barrett Murphy Law Firm, 401-228-8271. So just to recap, there is new video from one of the dash cam videos. I did share it on the Facebook page of that they had of the shooting at Brown University regarding just as the shooter emerged from the building. There's a shuttle bus for students, and they apparently have a dash cam video, and that video was out. It doesn't really tell us anything new, but it is a little eerie as you see him just calmly walking across the street, simply because we know what just took place inside, and then we also knew, what the next couple of days were going to be. And if someone had chased him out and drawn attention to it, it may have saved the life of that professor at MIT. All right, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll continue to follow. Say a prayer for our country. Say a prayer for the president. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news.